Hi there, my name is Graeme Codrington, and this is a series on the future of careers and professions. We are looking at all the various different professions and how they're being impacted by technology and changes in the world around us and what they might look like in the future. In this video, I want to talk about journalism. And how the media is being impacted by changes in the world around us and what journalism might look like in the future. Is it still a valid career choice? I believe that it is. There are three key ways in which journalism is changing dramatically because of the disruptive forces around us, especially technology and the way in which information is communicated. The first is a change in technology itself, the technology that is required to actually capture audio and video, to transfer that information around the world, to transmit it to other people. The way in which we consume information has changed dramatically. And so journalists in the future need to be technology experts as well. No longer are there massive crews and big trucks with external broadcasting facilities. You know, you can literally just do it on your smartphone. You can write up reports, deliver them from wherever you are, and in fact upload live and live stream everything that you're doing. So journalists in the future need to be very tech savvy. They need to understand, or good journalists at least will be those that understand and are able to quickly adapt to the technology and know how the technology of communication actually works. The second major change that is happening is obviously related to the mediums in which journalism actually happens. It's no longer restricted to the mainstream print news, newspapers, magazines, or to radio and TV. Now you've got the citizen journalists, if that's the right label. Anybody can have a blog or a Facebook page or a YouTube channel and upload things, and it's becoming increasingly easier at one level to transmit information, but increasingly more important that we have professionals in the system who know how to do the job properly. And that probably leads to the third biggest shift that I believe has to happen. I'm not sure it is happening yet, but has to happen and will happen through the 2020s. And that is the shift that has to take place in terms of actually verifying information. In fact, probably, to be honest, going back to old school journalistic principles. The news has got too caught up in the hype factory at the moment, rushing journalists to the scene of the incident and throwing them up in front of camera or interviewing them when they really don't have much to say. They haven't investigated the story yet. They don't know what's happening, but they just want to be there and be live and to cover the events as they happen. That may be a small aspect of what journalists do, but what we need more of is the journalists that bring an editorial rigor to what they do, who investigate deep and long and look for understanding, verifying their sources, not going to print or to press or to air until they have 2, 3 or more verified sources. Not just telling us what they can see, which we can see with our own eyes as well, but actually giving us analysis and insight and understanding. Of course, we're stuck in the early 2020s as we head into the start of this new decade. We're stuck in a moment where it's all about hype, where a lot of it has got to do with ideology. And so, rightly so, although I think the label is badly used, there is a lot of fake news around. And the 2020s is going to be about finding ways to break through that, to break through the hype, to break through the noise, to find the signal behind it, the depth, to look for truth, to recognize that truth does have a perspective. There's very little absolute truth in the world because everything we see from a perspective, but finding ways again to highlight what that perspective is, to bring as many different perspectives as possible and get as close to the core, the absolute truth as we can. So journalists in the future are going to be tech experts who are great communicators, who have deep political, economic, social understanding of the world around them, are probably got a little bit of the philosophy and anthropology about them. In other words, some of our best people on the planet need to be attracted into journalism so that we can bring truth telling again to our communities. And not just rely on what's coming across our Facebook feeds for our news. So I do believe that journalism has a great future, but there's an interesting problem, because in the midst of all of this, artificial intelligence is proving itself to be very good at taking online information, taking news sources, and crafting articles. We know that we have artificial intelligence that is good enough to write a headline-worthy news article all on its own, just scraping information off of Facebook and Twitter and so on. And so we've got to realize that in journalism, as in many other professions, there is going to be artificial assistance for the journalists in the system. But I would battle to imagine an environment in which I would trust a news source that was entirely driven by a machine, by artificial intelligence. Journalists need to be good at asking great questions, at investigating deeply, at being skeptical of the answers that they receive, of having systems thinking to be able to pull together multiple strands of information, and sense making to make sense of it. They have to be good at communicating that in as short a soundbite as possible without oversimplifying the situation, and being prepared where it is important to show humanity, empathy, compassion, and engagement. These are things I will battle to imagine a computer or a machine doing any time in the next few decades. And so in my mind, journalism is going to be something where we have computer-assisted human beings doing the job for a long time to come, where we need our best and our brightest people on the job so that they can hold our politicians, our business people, our society, hold them to account and bring us the truth. They need to be trustworthy individuals, the best people that we instinctively will trust and have resilience and tenacity and all of those good things that go with it. And so I would highly recommend that people consider journalism as a profession into the future. The only downside, of course, is that journalists are not particularly well paid. And so one final thought from my side, if you are still watching this, is that you need to make sure that you pay journalists. Good journalism should not be free. News should not be free. Yes, there is news that can be obtained at no cost. You can find information online without having to pay for it. But as they often say, you get what you pay for. And all of us should be subscribing to 2 or 3 news sources so that we can give them some revenue. We should be supporting them in a variety of different ways by buying their magazines or getting online subscriptions, or just donating to a news organization or a group of journalists who are doing investigations, and making sure that there is that ongoing monthly support of great journalism. It really is a pillar of society, something that needs to be protected and nurtured, and we need to make sure that there is enough revenue in the system so that the best and brightest consider it as their career options. I am, as you can hear, a huge fan of good journalism and good journalists. And if that is something that you want to do for the future, you have all of my support.